Ladies and gentlemen, but I don't have to shout actually. Most of you know me, most if not all of you know me or know of me.
Who are you?
Okay, good question. I came to Canada in 1973, a long time ago. I came to study. I'm one of those, well, my name is Monsieur Rupnarayan Monsieur. I came to Canada to study. I never wanted to leave Guyana as such. But after this Wismar incident, I was having second thoughts. And I said, well, I'll probably still go back. Government might change, things would improve. So I went to the University of Manitoba. I didn't get government scholarship. I would never have gotten government scholarship. But because I wanted to go back, instead of studying medicine like most of our parents want young boys to do, or boys and girls, I decided to study animal science. I said, one of these good days, if Dr. Reed is still there as Minister of Agriculture, I'll go and and contribute to building the country. So I went to University of Manitoba and then the University of Alberta, and of course I get all the degrees that you could actually get, academic degrees. And I worked at the University of Saskatchewan for a few years as a research scientist. And while I was we were in Saskatoon, it was fine, but the people always just ask me how you like our place, how you like our country. And I told people, I said, you know, I happen to be a Canadian citizen for what it's worth. So anyhow, I left and come to Toronto, where I'm among people that I like. But the thing is that coming back to this Wismar incident, this Wismar, what they call it, the Wismar Massacre, I wrote about this thing many, many years ago. Like Ram, I like to write. I'm not an English major, though English is my English and history are my first love. Science came afterwards because Pa said you got to study science because that's the way the world is going, and if you want a job.
Let's have the prayer to open up.
Okay. So much for that. I'll now call on our priest, Pandit Prasad, to give a prayer and formally open this thing.
Brothers and sisters, I feel today is a day that I will remember for a very long time, because the proceedings that are about to follow, I think they were long, long overdue. I invite you now, not as individuals, but collectively, that those of you who are here in this mandir, this house of worship, to think of yourself as representatives of our Guyanese diaspora. And as such, whatever business we conduct here will travel eventually far beyond the borders of this temple once we leave here this evening. I invite you to join together with me to invoke and to be aware of the presence of Brahman everywhere. And to that Brahman, we also become aware of the working of the laws in this cosmic creation. We'll do Gayatri Mantra first. Om Bhurabhuvah Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Sangachadvam Samvadadvam Samvo Manamsi Janatam Deva Bhagam Yatha Purve Samjanana Upasate. O humankind, O good people, move together, think well together, and be always respectful to each other. And like the seers of yore, be acquainted with all the sciences that are available in the cosmic existence. And like the ancient ancestors, let your devotion and dedication be towards that Supreme Brahman. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Thank you, Panditji. May 22nd and 24th. And everyone, all the leaders of Guyana and people around the world have been saying that, yes, it was an atrocity committed by one group of people against another. In those days, the word ethnic cleansing was not used to describe it, but now, when looking back, when people were driven out from their homes and become internally displaced, they, just because of their race or whatever they are, their culture or whatever, is cleansing. I mean, they couldn't go back. They couldn't go back. So, the thing is that we've been talking about this thing for over 50 years, 1964, 36, 54 years, and no one has done anything about it. All right. The question is, after this Wismar incident, 2 years after that, the independence was granted, political independence was granted by Britain, because at that time many of the colonies were a little bit a burden to Britain, to the mother country. So the mother country was gradually granting independence to them all. Now, the date of this independence was very significant. It happens to be May the 26th. And in as much as people said that's not a good day because the Wismar incident happened, the government of the day went ahead and do it and set the date, and then independence celebrated with pomp and splendor, and everybody supposedly were happy and they would live ever afterwards. And the opposition politicians were all upset. Dr. Jagan wrote in his book, The Western Trial, that he was talked to Mr. Burnham, the Prime Minister then, not to have that date, but he went ahead. And the irony of the whole thing is that when the PVP got into power, what did they do about this Independence Day?
Nothing.
Nothing. So I wrote a thing many years ago. In 2005, I wrote this article, and it was published in one of the South Asian Newsweek as part of an article which, if you put Root Monsieur and put Wismar, it will show up, Google, and you can have a look at it, South Asian Outlook. And it did recall why people like me chose to come or to leave Guyana. Anyhow, you can read that, you talk about it more later if there is time. So, one person who has lived in Wismar after the incident is our friend Gulcharan Mahavir. He may want to say a few things to get well, not a first-hand account, but he was one of those who was appointed to one of these top positions in with the guy who they call it used to be Denver, and so you may want to share something, Gulcharan. Okay.
Friends, thank you all for coming, and thank you all for starting something that has long been neglected. And I hope that this will germinate into something substantial and have an impact on maybe in Guyana, but certainly here in Canada for all those Guyanese who are here. our children don't know anything about what happened in Wismar. And the reason for that simply is we have neglected our duty. And we need to correct that situation. And I must thank Ram Jagesar, who is trainee, but who took it upon himself to start up this whole idea of getting something done. And it was a very, very big-hearted action from Jagesar, and I'm very pleased that he included me in his planning. I think that the facts for Wismar, our two Indian brothers who are here may not know about these facts, so I'll quickly recap them. Wismar was a town that was situated in the hinterlands of Guyana, and it wasn't easily accessible, not by plane or train or road. The only access to it was by boat, and that boat's journey was a one-day journey. So it was an isolated location, and it was a one-industry town, one-company town. The company was a bauxite company, Demba in those days it was called. Demba was a Canadian-owned company, and in fact I think the company still have offices in Montreal, Quebec. We were mining for bauxite and shipping it to all over the world for various uses. And there was a mixture of the population that was here, as was the same throughout Guyana. Blacks, Indians, Chinese, and whites too. The whites were primarily people who were brought in by Demba to be engineers and accountants and senior positions in Demba at that time. And there are speculation as to how this whole thing came about. But for me, I have no doubt. It was a struggle by the African people in Guyana to take over power, because at that time the PPP government was holding a kind of semi-powerful political position. They did not have 100% control over the affairs of the country. Because primarily, exactly what happened was that we did not have independence, full political independence at that time. But the PPP was the governing party at that time. And I think black people felt that they do not want Indians to rule them. And people like Storyfield Reed and Hamilton Green and even Burnham himself, they were always stirring up problems all over the country, so that the British will see that the PPP is incapable of running the country. But it was always like that. In fact, I remember very clearly black people telling me that, you police don't belong here. This is our country. And they would say it with so much virulence that you would feel the fear that was existent throughout those days and even until now. The fear was palpable, and you were not. I don't think Indians at that time were capable of or were equipped to handle that amount of hatred that was thrown at us on a constant basis. The Wismar was, to my mind, was meant to be a lesson to all Indians throughout Guyana. That this is what you are going to be saddled with throughout your life in Guyana if you continue to be here. And it was very vicious, very, very, animalistic. A lot of things are happening, and even up to now, our women don't like to speak about it. They were so horrific. I remember very, very vividly, after the folks from Wismar came out, they made tapes. In those days, we only had the tape recorders, and they made tapes and they distributed them to all Indian villages all over the country. And I was 15 years old, and my parents went at one of our villagers' bottom house, and they were playing this tape and listening. And me, being 15 years old and very fast, I went to, and I was listening to what was being said on those tapes. And when certain things began to be said, my mother, who was there, chased me away. And afterwards, she came home crying. She was crying for a long time because of what they heard from those tapes. What had happened, because of the isolation of that community in Wismar, black people decided that they were going to attack all the Indians and get rid of them here. From there, approximately between 2,000 to 2,500 Indians who were living in that area were chased out entirely from that area, and their homes were burnt. Some were burnt. Women were raped. Men were killed. Some people ran into bushes to hide from all the atrocities that were going on, and many of them did not escape the atrocities. Some of the things that really happened were, I'll be very honest with you, very unspeakable. Us being very genuinely humane people, we don't like to think that these things can happen to that one person can do these things to another person. But they were very, very cruel. There were lots of cruelty that were meted out to Indians, and they were forced to leave, to evacuate. This happened over a period of 3 days, from May 24 to May 26. And by May 26, they were all forced to leave, and they were only able to leave on one boat. One boat that could not carry 500 people in it. It had to take 1,200 people from there to go out to Georgetown and to escape the cruelty that were being meted out to people in that area. I have talked to a few people who witnessed some of the things that are happening there, and many of them said that even their own neighbours who used to be friends with them, those people turned around and looted their property, their belongings, and burned their homes, and beat Indians, and all sorts of atrocities.
How many people were in the mob? The black mob?
It's difficult to say, but I would say at least about 5,000 people.
How did they get 5,000 people in this isolated village?
It was a very large community. Even though it was isolated, it was a very large community, and there were people living in Wismar, Mackenzie, Christianberg, and there were surrounding areas where there were pockets of people who were living there. And I would say that there were at least, in the population in that area was at least about 10,000. Vera might have more.
Sorry about that, I don't know the number, but
Yeah.
what I was going to point out, it started out as Wismar, but as he just pointed out there, Wismar was only one of the towns. The main one was Miss Mackenzie, where you had the bauxite plants and the bauxite industry.
Operation.
Wismar was across the river, away from that town. So that is why you would have a lot of people, a lot of black people were employed in industrial town. So, and also they were living across the Wismar area. So that is why you would have 5 or how many thousand, I don't know the number.
The distribution of the population in that locality was such that the people had to be were living near to the mines that they were working on. There was a mine in Wismar. There were several mines over in Mackenzie, and there was a mine in Christianberg. So wherever these mines were, and these workers had to go to those mines, they were located in that area.
Now my point is, 5,000 people don't spontaneously gather to do ethnic cleansing.
I think the question there is not one mob, it would have been more than one.
Yeah.
Sporadic.
Right? So 5,000 I think is the population that is probably talking about. But you would have had, pockets of people. Anytime you have that, you don't have one group, but they'll be situated in different areas. And 50, 60, it could have been any number, But somebody...
The guess behind that is, was it organized by somebody in the background?
It was an organized mob.
It was organized. It was organized by the PNC. Of that I'm certain. And I understand, although I don't have any proof of it, that Shirley Philriddy was there.
Who?
Shirley Philriddy. You probably wouldn't know her.
But what the irony with this, I mean, I don't want to take it off the path, but you mentioned Shirley, and you mentioned Hamilton Green.
Yes.
Hamilton Green we had the People's National Congress, which was the opposition as opposed to the PPP, People's Progressive Party, which was Jagan's party, and his party was in government at that time. So you have this Burnham faction, Burnham set, was the People's National Congress. Hamilton Green was the general secretary of that party. He was the main man of the party. Strangely enough, he was married to Philriddy.
Yeah.
To whom?
Philriddy died later on.
And
And she was buried in very short, I think within a day or something.
Same day.
I don't know if it's the same day exactly.
same day.
So the irony, I just wanted to bring that up.
Can you clarify what
Cremated,
you
huh?
Yeah.
I don't.
Actually, we're going off a little
Yeah,
bit.
going on.
I want to get back in because I don't want to spend too much time, and I want others to have a chance to say things too. One of the major ironies of what took place there was that there was a police contingent living in Mackenzie and Wismar, and they did nothing.
75 people.
Yeah, they did nothing to prevent any kind of atrocity from continuing. And the reason for that is simple. All the police were all blacks. There were no Indians who were police in that, at that time in that area. Also, the bauxite company had their own security. I know this for a fact because I worked with Guy Mine when it became Guy Mine. And they always had security personnel who were stationed all over the place to help protect the property of the company. But those people could have been taken to help to control a situation that had gone totally out of control. Because at the end of May 26th, no Indian remained there. In fact, anyone who had risked remaining there would have been killed. Now, there are rumors about the way some black people are trying to rationalize their behavior was they're trying to bring another incident that happened there and use that as their kind of excuse for going on this rampage, and that is the blowing up of the San Chapman boat. However, to the best of my knowledge, that son Chapman blew up months after.
July
the
the
Wismar
6th?
massacre.
It was July the 6th?
Yes, somewhere thereafter.
And what had happened in the Son Chapman is that they were transporting explosives
to Georgetown.
to do their own whatever. Guy mine always carry supplies of explosives because they were using to clear mines and clear forest areas and so on. And they always had supplies of explosives
So the Indians,
on site.
the Indians living there were also employed in the box
Yes,
mill?
it was only a one person, but many of them also, they had businesses. They, like shops where they were selling goods, dry goods and other stuff and so on, because people there would need those things, and so they Indians set up businesses there, and they were fairly wealthy, doing pretty well for themselves, and so this thing happened. It happened. All Indians were forced to leave the area. And they came to Georgetown only with the clothes on their backs and a few small things that they could gather around very quickly. Even though Idi Amin happened afterwards, but if you know what happened in Uganda, you'll get an idea of how quickly and of some of the things that happened in that area. And that entire event set the stage for many, many other things to happen in Guyana. One of it was, I think a lot of Indians decided that they don't want to remain there, and they got an opportunity to come to Canada, come to America. Many of them decided that they were going to go back to England, because at that time we all had British passports. If you wanted to go back, you could go to England before May 1966. That was a possibility, and I think many people took that opportunity to do so. We came, those of us who came here, came afterwards. But Wismar set the stage for all sorts of atrocities to happen all over the country, especially in Georgetown. I personally witnessed at election time in Guyana, wherever the PPP had election meetings for election purposes, they were attacked by black hooligans, beaten, the bricks were thrown at them, their equipment broken, and the whole thing was disrupted, and they were not able in Georgetown to hold any meetings. All of these things, they became very commonplace in Guyana since that incident. And people remember it, but we don't talk about it, because for various reasons it's a very unhappy thing that we have to carry in our memory. But it is there, and perhaps by not talking about it, we are doing ourselves a disservice by not talking about it. Maybe this might be a healing process for us, and I hope that there will be a very good discussion on it, so that we can get a full picture of everything, and maybe some scholar someday might pick up on these things and write a history about it. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you, Bushran. So folks, this is a memorial. While some people are dancing in the streets celebrating independence, we are reminiscing what happened on that day. And on the agenda here, we have witness impressions. I mean, from the audience. I have someone who is not here. I also put my name. Then I could ask people from the audience after this. But the thing is, I remember I used to go at the time while Wismar was happening. I was attending school in Georgetown, and the principal of our school, the school is called Indian Educational Trust College. His name was Mr. Richard Ishmael. Ishmael was the head of the trade union movement, and he was spearheading the Africans, the Burnham and his friends, managed to get an Indian to spearhead the attack against an Indian government. So to let it get some kind of sense of legitimacy. And nobody liked him in school, I know for one I was there. And I used to, in my paper, I mentioned I was fast-tracking my studies at high school. I just didn't want to spend many years. Many people chose to stay home and don't go, but I went in spite of the riots in 62, 64, 62, 63, 64. Now this day I heard they said these people from Mackenzie were coming, and they were the Woods Wharf, not the Woods Wharf, but the Starbuck Market Wharf. And I went, and I saw they were coming up the step from the boat. And well, the first thing that I looked for were the girls of my age, and see, it was a pitiful sight. Half clothed, they're like walking dead. So, what do? We talked about it. You get angry. You said you're going to do this and do that. Of course, we did nothing. And I, like most people, did nothing. But I'm glad that now we can muster a few people to come. And if we don't remember this thing, it will probably be just another footnote, another forgotten part in the history of Indians in Guyana. Actually, that part of the history is just a footnote. Nobody makes too many mention of this. So I'm hoping that what will come out of this meeting today is that ultimately there will be some more discussion and more documentation of what happened. If you go to the internet, you put Wismar, you get plenty. But somehow create more awareness than just writing an article and say, oh, it happened, it's very sad. True, bad things happen all over the world, in many places. And but this is, and people are commemorating them. Our Jewish friends, they have the Holocaust. And year after year, they commemorate this. Some people, of course, deny that it ever happened. Some people, similarly, they say, oh, Wismar is just another little thing, so why worry? But anyhow, I think I was sufficiently moved when Ram and other friends suggested that we have this thing. Today, while they were celebrating at City Hall, I think, raise a flag and pledge allegiance to Guyana, which is nice, but under ordinary circumstances, not when on the same day you had this massacre take place. And I like to write, but I don't know if many people write it. I like to read what I write. I put together what is called poetry, and it's called the Wismar Massacre. But it's not a massacre in the sense that you have wholesale killing like the massacre of My Lai in Vietnam. But the massacre, perhaps it means more like people being driven out, and everybody has some sort of getting beaten up by people here. They say for 3 days and 3 nights, Indians in Wismar were singled out, made to pay the high price of ethnic cleansing in broad daylight. Was it geopolitics in action? The game that went wrong. Now, you know, big countries like the United States, and it's documented, it's the CIA orchestrated. And Cherry, Dr. Jagan, he loves to believe what he believes in, and he wants the people to follow it. The Americans were afraid that he's going to be make Guyana into another Cuba. And the Americans were afraid of Cuba, and they want Guyana being the northeast corner of South America, the tip of South America. If the thinking at the time was that if Guyana falls to Jagan, South America will go. And so communism was the big enemy. So unfortunately, we who supported the PPP were seen as enemies of the Americans. And so various things that the Indian people suffered were the consequence of actions by the big powers, America in cahoots with Britain, to make sure that the elections were gerrymandered in such a way that Burnham or the opposition forces would win. Anyhow, and so there's another piece there: molested, beaten, and battered. They were brutalized by neighbours, albeit of a different color, amongst whom they had lived, used to be their trusted friends, and now blighted with mistrust and hate. Men were taunted, spat upon, beaten, left for dead. Women snatched for homes, raped, battered, blue and black. My fellow humans of a beastly mindset, forced from their homes, children wandering the streets crying, "Where is daddy? Where is mommy? Where is the security?" Okay, that's part of it. I don't want to read the whole thing, but we'll read it someday.
We don't have Roop here, right?
We don't have.
I mean, Harry.
Harry is not here, so what I could do now is I could ask anybody in the audience who has memories of Wismar to share their story. I mean, you might not have seen what I saw, or what those who lived through the experience saw, but you might have heard story like this one I heard, and I'm going to say it very briefly. A very good friend of mine, his father was working, his family were there. He was a little boy then. They were living in Wismar, and I could say they have 3 houses from the Stelling. And one day last year, at an event where you have both black Guyanese and Indian Guyanese, he overheard a young black guy was saying that he was from Wismar, and then to him, to this guy, my friend listening, that looked very familiar. So he went up to the guy and said, "Brother, where do you live?" He said, "The third house on the Stelling." He said, "How did you get? How did you buy that house?" He said, "No, they just went. They just went. It was vacant, and they went in a very nice house, and they lived there for many, many years. And a few years ago, he came to Canada. The house was still in his family name." Now, that house that they were talking about
Signal him to go around.
belonged to the family of this friend who was telling me the story. Now, his father happened to be one of the chief. He was the most important guy, a sampler of bauxite. He used to go in the field, and if you look at see a rock or the ore, he picked it up and said, "This has 15% bauxite. This one has 20% bauxite." So he's a very important man, and he was the first one to be driven out of Wismar. There's a good news story to it, if there was any news. He was rehabilitated, he was given a job with the government, and they lived on the east coast of Demerara. So that's what I could remember. This one was with a kind of sad story, but with not so bad ending. He didn't lose his life, he wasn't beaten up. Alright, so, anyone wants to share a story now? You can come to the mic, or there's a mic over there if you want.
Was a gentleman that I know personally by his name was Tika, an Indian guy. Tika, he was the chief employment officer. And at that time, there was a place they called Watuka. I've been to Watuka. Watuka had at least about 600 white Canadians living in Watuka. And Watuka was such a prestigious area you would not believe. So this situation is a long history. I hope someday we can write about it. But the catalyst in this situation is, I want to again commend Bhai Ram, Bhai Gulcharan and Roop for their initiative to get this memorial off the ground. I think from today onward, I think we can build on this, because this has been a trend, as Shamuji rightly said. You find that it's still happening in India. And I have said it a number of times, and through the inspiration of Bhai Shambhu. And this is something all of us should know and remember and share. No government in this world, no political government in this world will ever be able to govern unless you have control and close association with the security forces of that country. And for decades, the PPP was in power in Guyana and failed to balance the security forces. I hear in this part of the world people loosely say, oh, Indians don't want to go in the security forces. That's the biggest lie. Ask me. I applied many times to get into the GDF and to the police force in Guyana. I had a younger brother who was a marksman shooter in the army. He left it 3 times and went back in. He said, when you line up, you only get quarter the food that the blacks will get. And they are forced out of the army, they are forced out of security forces. Catalyst to remind or to tell Indian people in Guyana that you no longer have dignity in this country and you should find somewhere else to live. That is the message I deduct from it. And I think now that events are unfolding differently across the globe, I think to me now, with Wismar and many other incidents around the world where Hindus are involved, to me, I have the resolution and the valiant attitude that the 21st century should be the century of Hindus. And even though we are few in numbers here today, I think if we work together, we can find solution, not dwell on the problems, but find solution how to be more assertive in any society where we domicile ourselves, where we live. So, Wismar story, if you wanted, I can give you pages. I lived there and I was working there, and I left just shortly before the riot. And I left on the grounds one Wednesday afternoon. I was at the cinema over at Denver, and you know, you buy tickets and you line around, and just like, again, Indians throughout Guyana were not fully prepared to take up the challenge of the battle, political challenge and battle that Chedi Jagan caused upon them in Guyana. Throughout the country, Indians were agriculturists, farmers, cattle rearers, bankers. They were not in the security forces. These people were not prepared. The entire security forces in the country were all blacks, and hatred was the order of the day.
But I think they put a lot of trust in Chedi Jagan,
Yes.
saying that he would,
Oh, yes.
would defend them.
because he was an Indian leader.
Well,
The teenagers also from Wismar and their parents, they were all living in a couple of villages where I was teaching. And I used to go and talk to these people, and they're from Wismar. And when you hear his stories, you want to cry, because it's so emotional. Their houses were all burnt. They were driven away. You know, the rape, the looting, what the black people do on the Indians here was incredible. I don't want to describe it. But when you hear from the words from these little children, what they have witnessed, and the parents, you know, you can weep all the time. But some of my friends who was also, they were so emotional. One of my friends married one of the Wismar teenager just to help the family also. I mean, so he gets so involved. I'm just telling you how we want to help. So it is very sad to see an incident like this, but we saw it, you know, in the British, the Wismar Massacre. The British are the one who instigated this. And the British, they supported also. They didn't speak a word against the Wismar incident. And the Americans didn't say a word against it.
No, they didn't.
No, that's it.
But I think if they have their way, they would like to bury it, right? Everybody would like to bury this whole incident.
Okay, that's right.
Perhaps if we understand the timeline of the political events in Guyana at that time, you might get a clearer picture of other things that happened. Because the political events that were transpiring at that time impacted the racial relations that were existent in Guyana at that time. If you remember very carefully, all the parties went to England and they met with Commonwealth Secretary, who was Duncan Sand at that time.
Okay.
Duncan Sand held that they were trying to get independence from Guyana, and Duncan Sand was the man who was representing the British government at that time. And they came to an impasse during the discussions, and that impasse was what sort of electoral system they will have in Guyana. And the PNC wanted one kind, and the PPP wanted the regular first past the post system that was still in operation at that time. And but the mistake that Jeered made was that he capitulated.
So the British and the Americans, they agreed that Jeered got to go regardless. So I believe Ram did a little
Only if you insist.
yes, sure. No, which is appropriate because it could help to create let us the audience know.
My friends, I'm going to stick to Wismar and Wismar type events. And I think it's appropriate to ask, we are all Canadian citizens here, not so? If a stranger come and ask, why are you Indo Guyanese worrying about something that happened a long time ago in a country far away, happened not to Canadian citizens? If you ask, the Indo Trinities we have here, why are you worrying about something happening in Guyana a long time ago? This incident, 52 years ago, you might ask the Indo Surinamis too, why are you worrying about all of this thing? What does that have to do with you? What does the Wismar Massacre have to do with you right here in Toronto? And the appropriate answer is, ask the Jews what the Holocaust have to do with them. The Holocaust was in Germany, in another country, to German citizens, as who were Jews, or to Poles and to Hungarians and so on. And what that has to do with us Jewish Canadians, right here and now, and they will tell you that Holocaust is one of the reasons why we are here in Canada. The Holocaust is one of the reasons why the Jews are here in Canada and all over the place. And we have to take the same approach. And I've asked people here, why are you here in Canada? And some of them, when they loosen up, they will tell you it's because of events like Wismar. Wismar apparently was the trigger, as he says, the catalyst that persuaded a lot of people in Guyana to leave Guyana. And don't feel this is only about Guyana. In my opinion, Wismar type incidents occurred in various other parts of the Caribbean. So when we ask, was Wismar an unusual event, right? A 1 in a million thing? Or were there other types of events like Wismar in other parts of the of the Caribbean in particular? And who was doing these Wismar type incidents, and why? And finally, what was the result of Wismar and anything else like Wismar in the Caribbean and to us in the diaspora? And when we look, we can see very clearly that Wismar was part of a pattern of attacks against Indians and Indian property, especially in Guyana, Trinidad, and Suriname. Right? These happen to be the places where Indians were in large numbers. In fact, in 3 countries, Indians were the majority, the biggest ethnic group there. And it is clear to anybody who looks at it that this didn't happen in Grenada and St. Vincent and St. Lucia and Jamaica and so on, where there were small numbers of Indians, because Indians were not viewed as a threat in Grenada, right? They were only 2% or something out of the population. But as I will show you in a couple of minutes, Indians in the larger Southern Caribbean countries were viewed as a threat by the black people, by the Africans and the mixed race people. They were viewed as a threat, and plenty more. So were there any other things like Wismar in Guyana? And it's a long list. Black Friday, February 16, 1962, when black looters and arsonists took to the streets of Georgetown to burn in mostly Indian businesses, right? The aim was to remove the elected government. There was a huge amount of violence during the general strike of 1963, nearly all of it directed against Indians, Indian supporters of the PPP. 2 individuals were killed in a bus bombing in Tain on March 4, 1964. 1 individual, a female sugar worker, was killed by an African strikebreaker in Leonora on March 6, 1964. 5 Indian workers were killed in Mackenzie on July 6, 1964. Headquarters of the PPP was bombed in July 17, 1964. Some 189 individuals were killed, and some 15,000 individuals were displaced as a result of political violence between March 1st and August 29, 1964. That includes Wismar. Later on, when Janet Jagan was president, there were mobs of black people beating Indians and burning businesses in Georgetown. Every Friday evening there was a riot, and they would go and they would burn Indian businesses on Water Street. You guys might remember that. There were daily street protests and bombings. People even attacked the presidential car of Janet Jagan.
Right.
The president, the chauffeur had to drive away and run. And because of that, Janet resigned soon afterwards. She couldn't handle it. Much later on in 2008, there was a massacre of 11 mostly Indian villages in Lusignan. And there were other things too that the black people tell you that some of them got injured and killed too. 13 were killed in Batica in 2008, mostly African. The San Chapman boat incident was mostly Africans. The Phantom Squad allegedly killed 2,000 mostly black people, 400 mostly black people in 2002. And when we count with all of these things, what was the result in Guyana? And the result is simple. Half the country left. This is the biggest exodus of any country in the 20th century.
Correct.
Half the country left. Dr. Rabri says 400,000, but Guyana was only 700,000 there. The 400,000 left. You know what that means. And what was the result for Guyana? Well, Guyana went down the drain. Guyana became 4th world or 5th world nation. Guyana was finished. Of the 400,000 who left, most of them were Indians. They were the creators of wealth, the farmers, the business people, and so on. They left the country. No country can survive the departure of its wealth producers, of its most creative and its its entrepreneurs and so on. And those were the Indians. People, entire communities were abandoned. Right? Where's Ruth? What happened to your house? Didn't you leave your house in Guyana? Right? Harry told me when he went back, they left his house, and the house had collapsed. People had stolen the lumber and so on. People, Guyanese men, people tell me now, when they go back to the old country, And they go back to their old home village. They don't see anybody they know. Where are those guys? Right here,
Can I
Queens, sure, yes.
I'd just like to add one point to there, Ram, is that I think around the 1960s, the country had zero illiteracy. Everybody could read and write.
True, yes.
Yes, everybody could read and
Yes.
write.
So now, was this the only kind of thing going on in the Caribbean? Obviously not. Trinidad had its, its share, not as big and bad as Wismar, but bad enough. One of the earliest ones, my friend Herman will remember, the 1958 federal election, when the PNM black government for the first time lost an election. It was the federal election. They tell me people were crying in Bally's house, right? They said this can't happen. Mobs of black people assaulted all the vendors. Before that date, all the vendors in Port of Spain were Indians. After that date, no vendors in Port of Spain were Indians. Mobs of black people attacked the Indian vendors. They damaged the stores, threw the oranges and the apples and whatever it is, whatever they were selling, right? There was a mini pogrom against Indians in Port of Spain, right? This is well documented. Many people know of it, right? Their livelihood was destroyed. And soon after that came the 1961 federal election. And what happened the crucial incident in the 1961 federal election was when the opposition DLP, mostly Indian party, yes, in 1961, the Indian party, the DLP, held a massive rally in Port of Spain, right? In the Queen's Park Savannah in Port of Spain. This was the biggest political rally ever seen in Trinidad. There were 50,000 people there gathered in Queen's Park Savannah. The DLP mass rally just before the election. And apparently this didn't stand too well with the PNM and the Black Party, and they unleashed a group of people, we call them marabuntas, and this was broad daylight, right? 2 o'clock in the evening, I think. Dozens of marabuntas, black thugs, were attacking the massive meeting, 50,000 people, it takes a lot of space, out the savannah. They were openly running into the crowd and pulling out people and beating them and so on, and the police were standing up there and turning their heads. Now this is in the center of Port of Spain, right? Right next to government building, the Ministry of External Affairs. Nothing was done, and this had a shock effect on the Indians in Trinidad. We believe that every incident like that caused a spike in the departures from Trinidad. Indians started to leave quietly. In that 61 election, mobs prevented the DLP from holding electoral meetings in many parts of Port of Spain. They would pelt down the speakers and beat them and so on, and the police would stand up there and do nothing. The DLP had to call off their electoral campaign in some parts of Trinidad. The government declared a state of emergency, so the election was held under a state of emergency for some of the constituencies in Port of Spain. And minor incidents happened like that, continue to happen. One of the more recent ones was the 1990 Muslim insurrection in Trinidad. Small group of people, from a small mosque in Trinidad, decided that they would take over the country, and they did. They seized the parliament, they seized the radio station and the television station. They shot the prime minister, they killed a man, one of the members of parliament, and they say we are taking over the government. And the instant reaction was that mobs of black people burned down a whole bunch of businesses in central of Port-of-Spain. They burned down every high-low from Diego Martin, I think, down to Napuna. Right? This was a grocery chain owned by mostly white people. Some Indian businesses were burned down in Port-of-Spain, and the significant event for us is that I understand that a motorcade of black thugs went up to Valsine, because the police were all engaged in Port-of-Spain. They went up to Valsine, which is one of the fancy housing settlements in Trinidad, where a lot of Indians and whites and other people live, right? Top-notch people live in Valsine, one of those. And they came in with the intention of looting and doing a little Wismar on Valsine. Fortunately, when they reached up to Valsine, they found that the Valsine people had blockaded the two entrances into Valsine. And many of the guys, they had guns. They had legal guns, they had shotguns, you know, hunters. And they told the fellas, you ain't coming in here. Anybody coming in here, you have to come and say who you're going to, right? And we will send a car and escort you in if it's a real person. Other than that, you ain't coming here. So the motorcade turned around and went over. We don't know where they went. But you can see the intention. Also, in the early 2000s, there was an epidemic of kidnapping in Trinidad. 99% of the kidnappees were rich Indians, right? And apparently 99% of the kidnappers were black people, right? This is well known. People underestimate the impact of this and what was going on. For the first time, the black people who had watched Indians getting prosperous and so on, grinding their teeth, they say, we're going to get them. We kidnap their children, kidnap them, make them pay. And they paid, we don't know how much it is, but the Indian business community paid millions and millions, I would say at least $50 million, maybe $100 million, because the amount of people who were kidnapped was astronomical. I remember I was doing monitoring of it, and there were, in some years, 100 people, 200 people were reported kidnapped. A researcher later on said that only 1 in 10 kidnappings is reported. So if 100 people were kidnapped in a year, that means the real amount is 1,000. And many of these got huge, $500,000, $2 million dollars in cash. And for a very strange reason, the police were completely unable to do anything about the kidnappings. And contrast that here with Canada and the United States. How many kidnappings for ransom do we have in Canada? What is it, how much?
Zero.
Close to zero. Like.
Zero. How much does America have? They're
Zero.
full of millionaires and billionaires, right? And yet, nobody kidnaps people there in America because they're terrified of the FBI. Here they're terrified of the RCMP because the weak point of kidnapping is how are you going to get the money, right? In the United States, you would kidnap somebody. Easy to do. How are you going to collect the ransom? The minute you come and put your hand on the ransom, 6 FBI guys jump on you. But the police in Trinidad seem unable to deal with that. You know, I send down information myself saying, you ever heard of a GPS tag? This is a tiny little thing, big like your small fingernail. You put it in the bag with the kidnap ransom money. It has a little antenna this long, right? You could barely spot that. You could stick it anywhere in the bag with the money. And the police can trace that, right? They can trace it for 20 miles. They can see it is moving here and so on and blah, blah, blah. Where it stopped, they could go there. If you have a helicopter, they can trace that bag with the ransom for 50 miles. That is the width of Trinidad. Police never use that. They never, got the serial numbers of the money and so on and traced to see when it was coming back in service. This was an attempt by black thugs and criminals to get back at the Indian businessmen. And they didn't feel they were committing a crime. They felt that we taken back meeting. Them Indian businessmen are a bunch of corrupt people. They taking, they're selling drugs. That is how they get business. And it's a quick one. Let's move to Suriname. Suriname, for many years, was run by Indians. Right? Chief Minister was an Indian, the Hindustani party in alliance with the Indonesian party. And the blacks who were a minority, they were grinding their teeth, they didn't like it. So over the years, they finally got the Indonesian people to break up the alliance with the Hindustani party and join up with the black people, and they won the government. And that was the end of Suriname. They couldn't run the country. They called a military coup on themselves, right? Black people, they couldn't run the country, and they were going to lose the next election, so they had military coup and chaos and confusion, right? And in February 1980, and a bunch of black sergeants staged a coup, took over the government in Suriname. And of course, some people objected to it. And the result of it was that the military rounded up 15 prominent citizens, all Indians, and shot them on the street. They lined them up on the street and killed them. By some accident, they all happened to be Indians, right? You know what was the result there? When Suriname got independence in 75, the Dutch government said, you guys are all Dutch citizens now, right? But when you get independence, you're not going to be Dutch citizens. You'll be Suriname citizens. However, if you want, you can come to Holland and retain your Dutch citizenship. Half of the Indian population got up and left, the same time as in Guyana. And that was the end of Suriname. That literally was the end of Suriname. Suriname became broken. It gone back to being a fourth world or fifth world country. So when you count it, two of the countries in which Indians were a majority and seen as a threat are now broken, they are finished. Trinidad is not so bad, but only because of the oil. And we still have a migration, and by my count, about 250,000 Indians have left Trinidad and are living in Canada, the United States, and so on. Here we have 150,000 Trinidadians in Canada. I estimate 90,000 are Indians. Down in the States, double, 180 and 90. That's only in these two countries. And so what is the reason for all this? I'm going to make it big. The simple truth is that the African people and the mixed race people, I put them together, black people have never accepted us Indians in the Caribbean, right? Particularly in Guyana, Suriname, and Trinidad, where we are considered to be a threat, where we are large majorities. They see us as interlopers. They see us as newcomers who should have no role in this country, right? We are intruders, right? And we are dangerous. Black people feel that they have suffered under slavery, under the white man. And when the white man gone, they have the right to rule. All black people believe this. This is more than a religion with them. You could change your religion, but this thing, black people all have it. We have the right to rule. This is a non-negotiable with them. They never talk about it, especially to us, but they all believe that it doesn't matter if we can't rule, if we mash up the country, we have to rule. And black people have implemented this in Guyana, Trinidad, and Suriname. All three are now ruled by blacks, right? You know how good they're ruling, right? And they have to rule, they have to get control, even if it means wrecking the country. And they have wrecked two of the three, right? We don't know where Trinidad will go. And They are especially resentful of Indians being bold and fast with themselves. You want to form political party, you want to be prime minister. This to them is an outrage. They feel Indians should never have a role like this. They're also very upset that Indians have been doing well. Indians are empowering themselves. They are rich Indians and so on. They think all Indians are rich. And so you want to control money, you want to be millionaires and billionaires, you want to have political party and rule this country, rule us, never happen. As I said, they believe they have the right to rule, right? And they will take any steps to get it done. The result has been, in all three countries, political violence, targeted ethnic violence, targeted criminal activity. I mean, we know in all these countries, the majority of the criminals are blacks, the majority of the victims are Indians, right? And what has happened now is that 1 million of the 2 million Indo-Caribbeans have departed the Caribbean. Remember that we have 2 million Indo-Caribbeans. 1 million has departed. 1 million remain down there. Right? In 2 of the 3 countries, the people who are Indians who have departed are bigger than the Indians who stayed. I think there are 375,000 Indians in Guyana now, maybe 400. Right? There are at least 800,000 Indo Guyanese in the diaspora. Suriname has 200,000 plus Indians living in Holland, right? Indo-Surinamese are living in Holland, and I think 146,000 are remaining in Suriname. Trinidad has 500,000 Indians remaining there, and 250,000 outside in the diaspora. So 1/3 have left, 2/3 remain. And to bring it down to brass tacks, the Indians in the Caribbean are helpless. They have never had a strategy to counter this black violence and this black feeling. They have the right to rule. In Guyana, they say, black man on top. Right? Meaning black man must be on top, regardless. They care about Westminster, they care about political system, they care about voting rights, they care about none of that. And when they get a black party in power, all the blacks, almost without exception, support it no matter what they do, whether they corrupt, whether they're competent and so on. The thing is, black man must be on top and Indian must not. And what are we doing about this? We here in the diaspora, we have walked away from all of that. We live in a place where there is no kind of existential threat to us, similar to that, right? We have little influence on what is going on back in the Caribbean. And because they don't listen, our own people, they don't listen to us. When you ask them what's going on, they say, "Oh, we are it, man. We even know you don't live here. Don't come and tell us anything," right? You could bring some money, that's all. So we can't have them, right? But what we can do is we can remember why we don't live down there anymore, why we are here, and we can remember the incidents that targeted us and triggered us to come from all these, all these 3 countries in the Caribbean. And we have a huge Indo-Caribbean community here, which by all accounts is doing well. And I'm sorry to tell you this, but this kind of violence that has been going on in Trinidad, Guyana, and Suriname, it will happen again. It will happen again. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question.
Maybe we have a few questions.
Yeah, questions. Okay, maybe 2 questions. in nowadays, a lot of people are asking for an apology for previous atrocities against minority groups or whatever groups you have, right? So that's one question. Would we want to ask for apology for the Wismar? Secondly, the Canadian government is not free of responsibility for this, because the mining company was actually owned by Canadian government, right? And yet they took a standoff attitude to this whole thing, and they did nothing. Their security personnel did nothing about this violence inflicted upon the Indians there, right? So those are my two questions: the Canadian responsibility part and demand for an apology.
What I would say in answer to that is that this should be done by the Guyanese, Indo Guyanese back in Guyana. If we here, the diaspora Guyanese, say we want an apology, who is you? You're Canadian. You asking us in Guyana for an apology?
No,
but
we can
we're
still do
double
it.
citizen.
Yeah.
I have to admire Jayanti. She has raised a very important issue.
We have
there.
it on the agenda here.
Yeah, and sorry.
Yeah, we have to move on. I think I will stop here.
Who
All
has
right.
to
Yeah.
say?
Can I make this point quickly? The fact is that the Denver company, even though it was not owned by Canadian government, it was a Canadian company, and they owed people their responsibility because they took those people there.
You mean their security guys failed to protect their workers?
Failed entirely to protect anybody who was working there, even though these people were their employees and people went there to work for them, they failed completely. And so they owed some kind of a responsibility to those people who were there. And I think maybe it's not too late that maybe we can go to Denver, because they're still existing, and ask them about it.
So these are strategies where we go from here, like what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not here just for memorial, as far as I think. We should have some strategy, as Ram said, is going to continue.
I think
So we have to have a strategy to move on from here, and which will include having this apology.
Explore that.
Yeah.
You see? Yes, explore it, and that is one of the issues. And two, how do we prevent a future happening?
Well,
These are two important things to my mind. I
Well,
think
Ram
that's-
has all those statistics, those glaring statistics.
Yes.
I think based on those statistics, someone should speak.
Or somehow acknowledge what went on and take corrective action, it wouldn't happen again. So this is something that we hope to at least discuss in the future, with the view of getting the leaders in Guyana to address this.
Because if we don't do it, that thing continues to 54 years has been happening. You know, and it is embedded. It's embedded in that date of independence that we got you Indians where we want you. Watch what you're doing, because they wouldn't choose that date just because it's they just pulled it off the hat like that. It had intent in it, and the intent is to show the Indians that you are our subjects.
You know your place.
Know your place. You see, and it can happen again. The way I see it, that is what that date is saying.
Good.
It can happen again.
All right, well, so we'll be around. I guess we can network with these guys and at least come up with a united front, and somehow let the government know that we don't want this thing to die a natural death. It's part of the history that we have overlooked. And in fact, I recall in the PPP time, when they got back in the power in 1992 or something, they de-emphasized May 26th, and they were in fact they were celebrating the Republic Day in February. But that's a different story.
No, here's quickly. Back in 92 or somewhere there, you said you had written that. I wrote to the Indo-Caribbean that very problem with the date. And I said what I should have done is promulgate a bill to not the date. You can't go and change the date anymore.
No.
But the actual celebration of the date should be moved from 23rd, from 26th to another thing. So way back in the early 90s, I wrote that, right? And even in that book, I think I mentioned it. But one thing quickly about the date, the Republic Day. You're celebrating Barnum's birthday.
Yes.
I explained that. Again,
That's also his birthday?
1920, he's born in 1923, February. February the 23rd, he took the 23 from the 1923 and made February 23 his month and the year of his birth. And that is what you celebrate for
Well, I
Republic
think
Day.
it was the date of the Burmese slave rebellion,
Huh?
February 23rd.
Well, I don't think it just happens that it's chance, you see? It's chance that
For half the population were not supposedly slaves.
Yes, good point. Well,
Good point, too.
what do you do?
So what do the people here feel we should do about this
Well, that's the next
Wismar
point.
Massacre?
Can I make a suggestion on this?
Yes, for sure.
It's after 5.
Uh-huh.
We have,
Give the vote of thanks,
yes.
have the snacks, and then we could talk informally.
Yes.
All right? So, Ron, any idea the vote of thanks you want to give?
Yeah, I'll do it. Not a big thing.
All right. While Ron is coming up, I want to mention that Ron has been taking a very active role in this first meeting. I mean, he might be Trinity, but I think his heart is in Guyana. In fact, he has been in the forefront of community work involving in this for a long time. Thanks to this guy and a few other people, we got South Asian Heritage Month in Canada. People forget that. He's the man.
True. Our friend
Oh, Jones.
Yeah, Jones want to make a
Yes.
point. Okay,
Yeah. How come I forget you, man?
That's okay. You might just look over my
Let
head.
me give the board a thanks. I say they were bringing up the refreshments,
Ah.
and we don't mind people talking on the mic and so on. To the people here. But the formal part of it, we have to bring it
Bring
to
to an end, yeah.
some people may want to leave.
Yeah.
So let me do the quick board.
Okay, good. All right, Jones, we can talk.
Friends, a vote of thanks is simply that. I want to thank you all for coming. I know you got short notice, right?
Yeah.
But it's a good indication that people were willing to give up this Saturday afternoon and to come here. We want to thank the Mandir, Panditari was very quick to, to give us this place, right? When we discovered that our plans for having a larger outdoor function was going to come up against forecast for rain. The forecast was for rain all day today. And he very quickly gave us this place. And I don't think it's because I'm a member of the executive here. He liked the idea. He couldn't come today, right? So we must thank the Mandir, and we must thank, I say all of you who came in, especially my old buddy Herman, who may write something about it. Because this thing, as I said, is not just Guyana, right? It's more than that. It's Indo-Caribbean and especially Indo-Caribbean diaspora. So with that, I'm thank Chandanji for giving the prayer, and our indefatigable chairman, Ruth Nasir and Gocharan, and all those who contributed. Ruth does a good job, but he gets a little bit emotional. But we have to thank him is because he has feelings. Thank you again, and we will have the refreshments now. And our friend can come up and say his piece. Yeah? No, you can bring it up here.
Okay. While Jones is coming up, remember Fiji, don't forget that. I mean, that's not in the world, but the same coup happened. Mahendra Chaudhary.
Okay, first of all, I'm very thankful for being here. And to all of you, I extend my love and my best wishes. First of all, with regard to the Independence Day celebration, the answer that was given was that on the 26th of May, 1763, the first blow that was handed to the colonialists was the slave rebellion, of which coffee became the leader. And while that may be so, throughout history and throughout mankind's life, any government, any organization, any society is always beset by what we call traitors. And even coffee was betrayed too. But because he was the first man who stood up, this is the explanation they have given. This is why the 26th of May is the day for Guyana's celebration. The other thing with regard to the Guyana became a cooperative republic, yes, it is true, it did intertwine with Bonham's birthday. And that was the time, whenever it came around, they call it Mashramani. If you look at it, Mashramani means mash up every man there.